Welcome back to Home Tutor. This is your personal teacher Nipan. Today we are going to discuss part 3, the struggle to survive of chapter 1, French Revolution in 9th standard history. Before going to the topic, let's discuss figure 3. It is the spider and the fly, an anonymous etching. So we can go through the dialogue boxes too. This poor fellow brings everything: grain, fruits, money, salads. The fat lord sits there ready to accept it all. He does not even care to graze him with a look. Then, in another dialogue box, you can see the nobleman is a spider and the peasant is a fly. Then, in another one, the more the devil has, the more he wants. Okay, friends and children, let's discuss figure 3. In 1829, a famous poet, Mary Howitt, published a poem known as The Spider and the Fly. The picture shown in figure 3 is taken from this poem. It's a story about a cunning spider who entraps a fly into its web through the means of seduction or manipulation. Then there is a question: why this picture included in our study material? In this picture, in our chapter, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe, the spider is related to the noblemen or high class society people, that is in the sitting position, and the fly is related to the poor peasant in standing position. So the above said poor farmer has come to the nobleman gathering all his wealth, that is grains he produced, fruits he cultivated, money he saved, etc. And he is submitting everything to the noble who is sitting in front of him. All his wealth is brought to the master. The landlord, the master, is very greedy and busy in collecting the products that the peasant brought and without giving a glance at him. Also, in another dialogue box, the landlord or the nobleman is compared with the devil, a devil who is not satisfied in anything. How much he gets, that much the devil, the landlord, is greedy. Okay, let's go to our topic. The population of France rose from about 23 million in 1715 to 28 million in 1789. This led to a rapid increase in the demand for food grains. Production of grains could not keep pace with the demand. So the price of bread, which was a staple diet of the majority, rose rapidly. Most workers were employed as laborers in workshops whose owner fixed their wages. But wages did not keep pace with the rise in prices, so the gap between the poor and the rich widened. Things became worse whenever drought or hail reduced the harvest. This led to a subsistence crisis, something that occurred frequently in France during the old regime. In 1789, France faced a population explosion. The population rose from 23 million to 28 million from the year 1715 to 1789. And so there was a continuous hike in the demand for food grains. The demand was much higher, the grains produced. Even the price of bread rose rapidly and very fastly. Bread was their staple diet, which means a routine day-to-day diet. Most of them worked as a laborer in workshops where their wages were given according to the will of the owner of the workshops. The wages they got does not balanced with the price hike because they were paid very less. Hence the poor became poorer and the richer became the richer. Together this, when drought, that is low rainfall and no stored water for daily usages, and then again hail, that means frozen rain. So When drought and hail again reduced harvest and the situation became pathetic because of scarcity of food. All this finally concluded in subsistence crisis, which meant an extreme situation where the basic means of livelihood are in danger. In other sense, subsistence crisis, which means supporting oneself to a minimal level, the minimum amount required to survive for a person, a situation that aroused continuously in France during old regime. We have already discussed what is old regime, so that is in part 2. So please do watch that video session also. So old regime means it is a system of government and society that prevailed in France before 1789. A growing middle class envisages an end to privileges. In the past, peasants and workers had participated in revolts against increasing taxes and food scarcity, but they lacked the means and programs to carry out full-scale measures that would bring about a change in the social and economic order. This was left to those groups within the Third Estate who had become prosperous and had access to education and new ideas. The 18th century witnessed the emergence of social groups termed the middle class, who earned their wealth through an expanding overseas trade and from the manufacture of goods such as woolen and silk textiles that were either exported or bought by the rich members of society. In addition to merchants and manufacturers, the Third Estate included professions such as lawyers or administrative officials. All of these were educated and believed that no group in society should be privileged by birth. Rather, a person's social position must depend on his merits. These ideas, envisaging a society based on freedom and equal laws and opportunities for all, were put forward by philosophers such as John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. In his two treatises of government, Locke sought to refute the doctrine of the divine and absolute right of the monarch. Rousseau carried the idea forward, proposing a form of government based on a social contract between people and their representatives. In the spirit of the laws, Montesquieu proposed a division of power within the government between the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. This model of government was put into force in the USA after the 13 colonies declared their independence from Britain. The American Constitution and its guarantee of individual rights was an important example for political thinkers in France. In the past times, the people who participated in the revolt or revolution or movements were the farmers and workers, and their revolt or movements were mainly on increased taxes and also for want of food. But they were not able to achieve these goals of success as they were poor and lowest class in the society, where their demand or rights were protected or valued. Is that right? No, their demands or rights were never protected because they were always low class people and these people were not in an importance for other class of people. In such a scenario, the middle class educated people from third estate take over the responsibility of liberation or liberating the social classes from evils that prevailed in the society. So the 18th century experienced the emergence of the middle class, who were wealthier from overseas trade and textile business. Either they exported it or sold it to the richer families in the society. Professionals like lawyers and administrative officers were part of the middle class society. Hence, the middle class comprised of educated members who believed that No one in the society should be given priority on the basis of their birth in a particular class, and all the people should be assessed and respected by their merits, their deeds, and contributions to the society. Thus, the middle class people believed and wished of a society stressed on idea of freedom, liberty, equality before law, and equal opportunities for all. These ideas were put forward by famous philosophers like John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Locke, in his famous book Two Treatises of Government, criticized the divine or godly power and absolute power of the monarch. Rousseau put forward the concept of the government, which is in a social contract between people and their representatives. Then Montesquieu, in his book The Spirit of the Law, suggested a division of power within the government, that is, separation of power among legislative, the law-making body, the executive, the law-implementing body, and the judiciary, the authority to punish or reform anybody who violates the law. So, a barricade or a restriction of power is visible among these machineries of government when the 13 colonies of USA declared independence from Britain. They followed a similar government. So all these incidents, then the idea like American Constitution, the common law of land to all, guarantee of individual rights, social contracts between people and representatives, the separation of power among different machineries of government, etc., influenced and provoked the people in France. The idea of these philosophers were discussed intensively in saloons and coffee houses and spread among people through books and newspapers. These were frequently read aloud in groups for the benefit of those who could not read and write. The news that Louis XVI planned to impose further taxes to be able to meet the expenses of the state generated anger and protest against the system of privileges. So the ideas influenced the citizens of France, and they discussed deeply these ideas in saloons, coffee shops, then wrote books and printed newspapers about these ideas of a people-driven government and right of the people. Another measure taken to spread this idea among illiterate people was that they discussed in common area and lectures were done in places where the people gathered like parks, markets, hotels, etc. Finally, when the people were enlightened and at this time when Louis XVI imposed more tax to meet the expense of government, the people became violent and protested to get their privileges. Now we are concluding part 3. So continuation of this chapter will be on next video. Please watch, share and subscribe, and also don't forget to press on the bell icon. Thank you very much. Bye.